Police shame a homeless war hero. He dials one number and changes everything. The doorbell jingled as the man stepped inside the small-town diner, brushing snow off his jacket. His clothes were worn, boots cracked, but there was something steady about him, calm, almost trained. He didn't rush, just walked in slowly, like someone used to watching every step. No one spoke, but the room shifted. People lowered their voices. A mother pulled her child close. One man even slipped his wallet into his coat. The man didn't flinch. He just looked around, found a stool at the counter where he could see both exits, and sat down. Coffee. Black, he said to the waitress who hesitated near him, unsure. And the special, if it's still on. She nodded, trying not to stare. There was something about his voice, calm, deep, respectful. He called her ma'am, not honey, not sweetie. She wasn't used to that. In the corner booth, 2 officers in uniform sat sipping coffee. Officer Kyle noticed first. "Well, well," he said loudly enough for the whole place to hear. "Look who wandered in off the tracks." His partner laughed, leaned in closer. "Careful, Rachel," he said to the waitress. "Count the silverware. These bums love souvenirs." The man didn't respond. He just sipped his coffee, but Rachel's hands trembled slightly as she brought his plate. "Meatloaf, mashed potatoes, green beans," she said quietly. "Hope it's okay." "Smells like a feast," he replied with a soft smile. "Thank you, ma'am." Officer Kyle pushed away from the booth and walked over, sitting one stool away from the man. "Hey, buddy," he said, sarcasm dripping from every word. "You really think you belong here?" The man didn't answer. "What's your name?" Officer Barnes asked, coming up behind him. He still didn't answer. Kyle tapped the counter. "Come on, you got ID? Or just a good sob story about serving the country like the rest of them?" The man slowly placed his coffee down. He looked between the 2 officers. Calm, eyes sharp. "I earned my dignity in Kandahar," he said quietly. "I don't need to prove it again to either of you." That changed the air. Even the people trying to ignore the scene looked over now. Barnes leaned in. "You threatening an officer?" "No, sir," the man said. "Just eating dinner." Kyle's voice got louder. "You need to leave, right now. You're disturbing the peace." "I paid for my meal," the man replied. "I plan to eat it." Rachel tried to speak, but Barnes cut her off. "Stay out of this, Rachel. Your brother wouldn't want you interfering with police business." That hit hard. She stepped back, lips pressed tight. Kyle grabbed the man's shoulder. "I set up. Now." The man didn't fight, but he didn't move either. "3 tours in Afghanistan," he said louder now. 2 Purple Hearts, a Silver Star, and I can't even eat in peace?" Barnes yanked him from the stool. The diner was dead quiet. As they dragged him toward the door, the man turned his head slightly and looked at Rachel. "If something happens to me," he said clearly, "call General Whitaker at the Pentagon. Tell him Eli Turner's in trouble." She froze. Kyle barked a laugh. "Pentagon? You serious?" But Rachel saw the look in his eyes. That wasn't a bluff. That wasn't a joke. The door slammed behind them. Cold wind rushed in, then silence. Rachel stood for a moment, unsure what to do. Then she saw something on the floor. The man's dog tags. She picked them up, ran her thumb over the metal. Turner. Elijah J. Her heart raced. She glanced around. No one said anything, but one kid had been filming. He gave her a small nod and showed his screen. Rachel walked quickly to the back, into the employee bathroom. She shut the door, locked it, and pulled out her phone. The number still echoed in her ears. General Whitaker, Pentagon. She didn't know if it was real. She didn't know if she was about to make a fool of herself, but her fingers dialed anyway. The phone rang once, Twice. 3 times. A woman answered. Department of Defense. How may I direct your call? Rachel swallowed hard. I need to speak to General Whitaker, she said. It's about someone named Eli Turner. He's in trouble. There was a pause. 1 moment, please, the voice replied. Rachel stared at the wall, heart pounding, eyes wide. And in the silence that followed, everything started to change. Rachel stood alone in the diner's tiny bathroom, the smell of disinfectant sharp in the air, her hands cold even though the room was warm. The phone was still pressed to her ear. She could hear faint clicking on the line, transfers happening. Somewhere far away, people were moving fast. She expected the call to drop, or to get sent to a voicemail. Maybe someone would tell her she was wasting government time. But instead, a calm male voice came through the line. This is Colonel Reynolds, aide to General Whitaker. Who is this? Rachel almost dropped the phone. Rachel Miller. I work at a diner in Riverbrook, Pennsylvania. I was told to call if Eli Turner was in trouble, and he is. 2 officers just dragged him out. He didn't resist or anything, but they were mocking him, threatening him. I'm scared they'll hurt him. There was silence on the other end. Not dead silence. She could hear papers moving, a chair scraping. Then, you said his name is Eli Turner? Yes, she said. He told me to call you. Said it like it meant something. It does, the voice said. Please hold for the general. Rachel's breath caught in her throat. The general. She stood there, staring at the floor tiles. They were cracked in places. She could hear a faint buzzing overhead, maybe from a flickering light. The seconds dragged. Then the line clicked again. This is General Whitaker, came a deep, steady voice. You have information about Sergeant Elijah Turner? Rachel's knees nearly gave out. Yes, sir. He was just arrested. He came in for a meal, didn't bother anyone, paid for his food. But these 2 officers, they knew him or they didn't like the look of him. I don't know. They mocked him, called him names, treated him like trash. Where is he now? The general asked sharply. They took him in their patrol car, from the Red Rail Diner. It's in downtown Riverbrook. I have part of it recorded, on my phone. You did the right thing, Whitaker said, already sounding like he was moving again. Send the video to this number. My aide will text it to you. Then I want you to go home. Stay there. Don't speak to anyone else about this until we've taken action. You understand? Yes, sir. There was a pause. Rachel. Sergeant Turner is a good man, one of the best I've ever served with. We will take care of him. And you. The line went dead. Rachel just stood there. She wasn't sure how long passed, but when she finally looked in the mirror, her face was pale. Her eyes were wide and full of fear, and something else too. She left the bathroom quietly. The diner had returned to normal, sort of. People were pretending nothing had happened. No one looked her in the eye. Rachel moved like a ghost through the room. She walked past the counter, grabbed her coat, and stepped outside. The snow had picked up again, tiny flakes dancing under the streetlights. Across the parking lot, she could still see faint footprints from earlier, deep, dragging marks. Where they'd taken him. She found the dog tags in her coat pocket and clutched them tight. Meanwhile, across the country, General Harold Whitaker stood by a large window in his Washington office, looking out at the Capitol in the distance. The night was quiet, but inside his mind, there was a storm. He'd known Eli Turner for over 20 years. A young soldier then, full of fire and loyalty. The kind of man who didn't speak much, but when he did, people listened. Eli had pulled him from a burning vehicle during a firefight outside Kandahar, saved his life, even when ordered to leave him, and now someone had put their hands on him? Whitaker turned sharply and picked up his secure line. This is Whitaker. Authorization code Sierra Charlie 21. I need immediate contact with Internal Affairs at the Department of Defense and the Department of Justice. Sir, came the response on the other end. Regarding? Regarding an unlawful arrest of a decorated combat veteran. I want boots on the ground in Riverbrook within the hour. And tell VA Affairs to prepare a formal statement. Sergeant Elijah Turner has been mistreated on U.S. soil. That ends tonight. Within 15 minutes, the wheels were turning. Back in Maui. Riverbrook. In a holding cell at the Riverbrook Police Department, Eli Turner sat on a metal bench. His hands rested in his lap, and his back was straight. His ribs ached from where Kyle had shoved him against the cruiser too hard, but he didn't complain. He didn't say a word. He just breathed, slow and steady, eyes closed, face calm. He'd been through worse, far worse. And he knew one thing about people like Barnes and Kyle. Their power was only real if no one pushed back. He had pushed back, quietly, calmly. But that was enough. He didn't know if Rachel would make the call, but something in her eyes told him she might. And if she did, he knew what was coming. Not vengeance, justice. In Washington, the halls of power rarely moved fast, except when General Harold Whitaker gave an order. By the time Rachel had sent the video, Whitaker had already made 5 calls, pulled in 2 favors, and skipped the polite route. His team was mobilizing. But even as operations began in Riverbrook, Whitaker found himself staring out the tall windows of his office, lost in a memory that had never really left him. Kandahar, 2003. He could still hear the sand whipping past their convoy, could still smell the smoke after the ambush. Their lead vehicle had gone up like a fireball, the rear disabled, trapped, surrounded, radio static, men shouting. A young sergeant had refused to leave him behind, not when the flames caught Whitaker's jacket, not when the bullets hit the sand inches away. Eli Turner had pulled him out, carried him under fire, then gone back, again and again, for others. When the smoke cleared, 5 men were still breathing because of him, and now that same man had been dragged out of a diner in handcuffs for trying to eat dinner? No, not on his watch. At the Riverbrook Police Department, the station had gone quieter than usual. Officers could feel something in the air, an unease they couldn't name yet. Eli still sat calmly in the holding cell. He hadn't asked for a lawyer. He hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't begged or cursed. He just waited. Every breath he took was measured, controlled. His eyes focused on a spot on the wall, not because he was afraid, because he'd learned long ago how to survive when no one else was coming. Except this time, someone was. Rachel, meanwhile, stayed at home like the general had told her. Her phone vibrated every few seconds with messages, some from friends asking what had happened, some from unknown numbers, anonymous and angry. She didn't answer any of them. Instead, she sat at the edge of her bed, holding Eli's dog tags in her hands, letting the cold metal press against her skin. She didn't know who he really was, not yet. But somehow, she trusted him. She opened her laptop and started searching. Elijah J. Turner, Silver Star, 2 Purple Hearts, former staff sergeant. Pictures popped up. Grainy military photos, a young man in desert gear. No smile, just focus. Then she found a news clipping. Soldier pulls commander from burning vehicle under fire. No interviews, just a quote from the general. He risked his life for others without hesitation. That's who Sergeant Turner is. Rachel leaned back, breath caught in her throat. Whatever had brought Eli to her diner, he wasn't just a man down on his luck. He was someone the country should have been protecting, and it hadn't. Back at the Pentagon, Whitaker was moving like a general in battle. He stood in front of a wall-sized screen with live updates on Riverbrook. His aide, Colonel Reynolds, looked up from a document. "Sir, we have visual confirmation. Turner is being held in a basic county cell. No charges filed yet." Whitaker nodded. "Get Internal Affairs on site, Civil Rights Division 2, and notify the Secretary of Defense. This isn't going to—" "Stay quiet." Then he paused, reached into his drawer, pulled out an old photograph, a group of soldiers in front of a Humvee, all dirt-covered and grinning. At the center, Turner, arms crossed, serious-eyed. Whitaker stood beside him, 20 years younger, with a burn scar on his right hand, gifted by that ambush. He stared at it for a long moment, then whispered, "Not this time, Eli. They don't get to bury you in silence." Meanwhile, at the Riverbrook Diner, news had started to spread in whispers. A regular came in saying he saw black SUVs roll up near the police station. A kid posted a short video online, Eli being dragged out. The comments exploded, some mocked, but many didn't. "He's a vet, man. You can't treat people like this." "Anyone know his name?" Rachel saw it all unfold. She stayed quiet, but she kept the video rolling. At the station, things changed fast. A black SUV pulled into the lot. Two sharply dressed individuals got out, flashing DOD credentials. The officer at the front desk straightened. Can I help you?" "Yes," the woman said calmly. "We're here for Sergeant Elijah Turner. Where is he being held?" "I don't think you can just—" She cut him off. "You'll want to call your sheriff, now." Minutes later, the sheriff himself, a tired man with more worry than power in his eyes, stood outside the cell, watching as Eli was escorted out by two federal agents. "You're free to go, Mr. Turner," one said respectfully. "We apologize for the inconvenience." Eli just nodded. He didn't ask questions, didn't gloat, just walked out with quiet strength. Barnes and Kyle stood in the corner, faces frozen. Kyle opened his mouth to protest, but the second agent spoke. "You'll want to remain silent. You're now subjects of a federal review. Any statement can be used against you." Eli passed them without a word, but Rachel's voice echoed in his mind. "Please don't be crazy." He smiled faintly. That night, Rachel got a knock on her door. She opened it slowly. Eli stood there. He wasn't in cuffs, no bruises, just tired. "You called," he said. She nodded. "You weren't wrong about the name." He handed her back the dog tags. "Thank you." She looked down at the tags, then back up at him. "Are you okay?" He didn't answer right away. Then, "I've been worse, but not for a while." She stepped aside. "Want some coffee?" And just like that, the story was no longer just about one man. It was becoming something bigger. A quiet war was beginning, one not fought with weapons, but with truth. And truth was about to get loud. The coffee Rachel handed Eli was in a chipped mug with a faded cartoon dog on the side. She apologized for it. Eli smiled gently. "Seen worse," he said, taking a sip. "This one's clean and warm. Good enough for me." They sat across from each other in her tiny kitchen. Outside, the wind howled softly through the streets of Riverbrook, but inside, the silence between them was thick, heavy, but not uncomfortable. Rachel finally broke it. "So, are they going to come after you again?" Eli looked down at his cup. "Maybe, but it won't be just me next time." She tilted her head. "What do you mean?" "There's something going on here," Eli said quietly. This wasn't just two bored officers harassing someone. That kind of cruelty, it's routine, practiced. They weren't worried about being seen. That means they think they're protected. Rachel didn't say anything, but her stomach tightened. She'd lived in Riverbrook her whole life. She'd seen how the police sometimes treated people on the edges, the ones who didn't have a fixed address, who sat too long on park benches, or asked for $1 near the gas station. But she'd never thought too deeply about it. Until now.
Thorough. Next morning, Eli walked through town. Some people stared, a few nodded politely, but most looked away. He wasn't angry. He understood. People don't look at what scares them. They'd rather keep walking and pretend it isn't there. He passed
an alley where he used to sleep during summer nights. A faded blanket still lay near the dumpster. Someone else had taken his spot. Near the public library, he saw an elderly man, coat too thin, shoes falling apart, trying to stay warm by sitting in the sun. Eli stopped, pulled a pair of heavy socks from his backpack and handed them over. The man looked up with tired eyes. "You're Turner, right?" Eli nodded. "They got my buddy Thomas last winter," the man said. "Picked him up outside the pharmacy, said he was trespassing, dropped him off 20 miles out in a snowstorm. Took us 3 days to find him." He didn't need to finish the story. Eli already knew how it ended. That same day, Rachel met with a woman named Ava Washington, sent personally by General Whitaker. Ava wasn't what Rachel expected. She wore sneakers with her pantsuit and spoke like someone who hated wasting time. "I'm here to sue the hell out of whoever hurt that man," Ava said as she shook Rachel's hand, "and anyone else they've been hurting." They met in the back booth of a coffee shop in a nearby town, where Rachel handed over the original phone video and everything she knew. "I kept thinking I was overreacting," Rachel admitted. "Like maybe I was reading too much into what they were doing. But now—" "You weren't," Ava interrupted. "You were seeing it clearly. Most people don't want to." Ava had handled cases like this before, quiet towns with dark corners. She started digging right away. Within hours, she had internal records, complaint files, and a list of officers in Riverbrook's department. When Eli joined them later that night, Ava laid it out plainly. "There's a pattern here," she said. "Your case isn't isolated. I've got at least a dozen reports of similar behavior, targeting homeless people, especially veterans." Eli nodded slowly. "They're not just doing it because they hate us. There's something bigger. A reason." Ava leaned back. "Money usually is." Over the next few days, Rachel worked closely with Ava. Together, they met other unhoused veterans in the area. People who had been arrested without cause. People who had been relocated far outside town. People who had been warned not to come back. One woman, a former nurse who served in Iraq, broke down crying during her interview. "I gave my youth to this country," she said, "and now I get followed every time I walk into a store. I'm treated like a threat, like I don't belong anywhere." Eli just sat quietly, listening. He didn't interrupt. He didn't offer empty comfort. But when she finished, he simply said, "You do belong, we all do." It wasn't long before Ava found something that made her stop cold. Emails, hidden in police department records, subject lines like, "Clean up for inspection. Focus on the northeast blocks this week. Falcon reps arriving Friday. Make sure the area is clear." They were vague, but when she cross-checked dates with incident reports, something clicked. "Falcon Corporation," Ava muttered. "Private defense contractor. Been buying up land all over town." Eli sat forward. "Buying what kind of land?" "Mostly in lower income areas," she said. "Places with a high number of unhoused residents. Same neighborhoods your people are being pushed out of." "They're gentrifying," Rachel said softly. "Clearing the streets, making them look better on paper." Ava nodded. "It's coordinated. The arrests, the harassment, the forced relocations. They're trying to clean the area up. Not for the community, but for investors." Eli's voice was calm but hard. "We're not garbage. We don't need to be cleaned." Later that night, Eli sat alone in a quiet shelter room. It was nothing fancy, just a cot and a nightstand, but it had heat and a door that locked. He held his dog tags in one hand, his other resting on a stack of printed reports Ava had given him. Dozens of names, dozens of stories. So many people. The world had forgotten, but they hadn't been weak. they'd just been tired. He thought of the ambush in Kandahar, of the men who didn't make it, of the ones who came home only to be lost again, this time in their own country. He looked out, the small window at the dark streets of Riverbrook. "We fought for this place," he whispered, "and now we fight again. But this time, not with rifles or orders. This time with voices, with truth, and with people who refuse to look away." By the following week, the weather had turned colder in Riverbrook, the kind of cold that slipped through window cracks and lingered in your bones. But inside a borrowed church basement lit by space heaters and hope, something was warming up. A quiet rebellion was beginning. Ava had turned the space into a temporary command post. The folding tables were covered with laptops, legal pads, half-empty coffee cups, and printouts with names, timestamps, and property records. Rachel sat at one corner, scrolling through comments on the short video she'd posted of Eli being dragged out of the diner. She hadn't expected much, maybe a few angry locals, a couple of likes, but it had exploded. Over 70,000 views in 3 days, thousands of comments, veterans speaking up from different states, former cops, college students, mothers, people who didn't know where Riverbrook even was, but knew what they saw wasn't right. Eli watched from the doorway, silent. He wasn't used to being at the center of things. He didn't want to be a symbol or a headline, but it was happening, with or without his permission. Later that day, Rachel met her younger brother Jameson outside the police academy. He looked nervous, glancing around like someone being followed. "I don't have much time," he said, tugging on his cadet jacket. "But I need to tell you something." Rachel felt her stomach twist. "What is it?" "They know about the video. They know you were the one who recorded it." She went cold. "Who?" "Barnes, Kyle, and Captain Brick." Rachel swallowed hard. "What are they going to do?" "I don't know, but Brick mentioned making an example of you. He said something about Falcon Corp not wanting loose ends." Jameson hesitated, then pulled out a flash drive. "I've been recording their after-hours sessions, the unofficial ones." Rachel took it with shaking hands. "They think they're untouchable," he said. "But I think you're right. Something's wrong. I don't know how to stop it." "You just started," she said. "Now we finish it." That night, back in the basement, Ava played the recordings. The first file was grainy. Low voices, static, but the words were clear enough. Falcon wants that district cleaned out by month's end. Vets, addicts, squatters, move 'em or lock 'em, doesn't matter. Another voice laughed. "We're doing God's work, making Riverbrook respectable again." The team sat in silence as the audio played. Eli's jaw was clenched. Rachel's hands were fists in her lap. "They're organized," Ava said softly. "They're not just bullies with badges. They're operatives in a bigger machine. And we're going to crack it wide open," Rachel said. In the days that followed, something incredible began to happen. Veterans who had seen Rachel's video started showing up. Some came from the other side of town, others from hours away. They didn't want attention. They didn't ask for help. They just stood beside Eli and said, "We're in." There was Miguel, a former Army mechanic who offered to fix the old van Ava had been borrowing for stakeouts. Tanya, a medic who started organizing first aid kits and food runs. Jerome, who brought in a generator and said, "Power cuts are coming. You'll need backup." They didn't say much. Veterans rarely did. But they moved with purpose, quietly, like they were on a mission. And they were. Meanwhile, Ava's legal team, small but fierce, began drafting civil rights complaints and federal filings. But the hardest part wasn't the paperwork, it was the fear. One night, Rachel's car window was smashed in. A note left on the seat. "Traitors get buried." Ava got a call from a blocked number. A man's voice warned her, "Walk away, lady, or someone's going to get hurt." And one morning, Eli found a red spray-painted X on the side of the shelter, where he'd been staying. Still, no one backed down. Eli met quietly with a local church pastor, an old man with kind eyes and a cane. He'd heard whispers about what was going on. "My congregation's small," the pastor said, "but we've got a back room. You need a safe place to meet. You've got it." Eli nodded. "Thank you." The pastor looked him in the eye. "Don't thank me. Just win." It was Rachel who came up with the idea for the faces. "They treat you like shadows," she said to Eli. "Like no one will miss you. Let's prove them wrong." So she started filming. Not just Eli, but other vets. Former nurses, cooks, engineers, translators. People with medals and scars. People with service dogs and cardboard signs. She let them speak plainly. Their names. Where they served. Where they sleep now. And one question. What do you want people to know? The answers were raw, quiet, but powerful. "I'm not broken, just tired. I didn't fight for this country to end up hiding from its cops. I used to wear a uniform. Now I wear shame." Rachel edited each clip herself, kept the background music soft, let the voices lead. Then she posted them, and the internet listened. Within a week, national news outlets were calling Ava for interviews. A well-known podcast did an hour-long special on Riverbrook. Hashtags started trending. "Justice for Ely, you're no more forgotten." We Served 2 donations started coming in, enough to rent a small office, buy better equipment, pay for hot meals and legal consultations. One letter came with a crumpled $10 bill. "My dad was homeless before he died. He was a Marine. I never knew how to tell his story. Thank you for telling someone's." Rachel wept when she read it. So did Eli. One night, as Eli stood outside the shelter watching the sky turn from dark blue to black, Ava joined him. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded. "Tired. You've started something, you know." "I didn't want to." "Doesn't matter," Ava said. "It's bigger than you now." Eli looked at her, eyes full of something deeper than fear. "Then we better finish it." Inside, Rachel added one last clip to her next video. It was of Eli sitting quietly on a bench outside the diner, a week after the arrest. Someone had placed a small bouquet of flowers beside him. No note, just respect. Over the footage, she typed the words, "Sometimes justice starts with one person who refuses to look away." She hit upload and watched as the war for truth continued to grow, one view at a time. It happened on a Tuesday, cold, overcast. A thin layer of frost clung to the sidewalks. Rachel had just left the temporary office above the old bookstore. She was holding a paper bag with lunch for the team, 2 sandwiches, a thermos of soup, and a lemon cookie Eli liked, though he never admitted it. She was halfway across the quiet street when a dark police cruiser pulled up fast, too fast. She barely turned before a door swung open. Officer Kyle stepped out, one hand on his belt, the other holding a smug look she'd seen too many times. "Well, look who we have here," he said. Rachel froze. Barnes stepped out of the driver's side. "Rachel Miller, you're under arrest. Interference with official investigation and tampering with evidence." "What?" she said, trying to step back. "That's not even real." Kyle grabbed her wrist. "You can argue with the judge." She dropped the bag, soup spilling across the pavement. They shoved her into the back seat, ignoring her protests. The street was empty. No witnesses. No one stopped them. 20 minutes later, Q was reviewing traffic cam feeds from his laptop in the back room when he noticed the police cruiser near the bookstore. He zoomed in, froze the frame. It was Rachel, and she wasn't walking. She was being dragged. He bolted upright. "Eli!" he yelled. "They've got her!" Within moments, the team was gathered. Eli, Ava, Q, and a few of the veterans who had been helping since the beginning. The tension in the room was sharp, like static before a lightning strike. "They won't take her to the station," Eli said. "Too many eyes on them now." "Then where?" Ava asked. Q was already scanning other cameras. Hang on. Got 'em. They're headed out of town. East side. That's industrial zone." "Old warehouse district?" Eli asked, already grabbing his jacket. Brianna, one of the former military police vets who joined the group, nodded. "Perfect place. No patrols, no cameras, no witnesses." "They're going to hurt her," Eli said. "They want information. They think she's the source." Ava's voice was cold steel. "We have to get her out." Eli quickly organized a team. 5 veterans, all combat tested, all volunteers. No guns, no violence unless necessary. They weren't soldiers anymore. This had to be clean. "Extraction. Only," Eli told them. "Get her out safe. Leave no one behind." They moved fast. Q hacked into the city's surveillance drones to get overhead views. The warehouse wasn't empty. One heat signature pacing, another smaller one seated. "Rachel. Looks like they're waiting on someone," Q said. "Probably Brick." "We don't wait," Eli replied. At the warehouse, the team split into positions. 2 created a distraction at the main entrance. A loud crash. Movement. Enough to pull attention. Eli and 2 others flanked around back, slipping through a rusted service door. Inside the dim outbuilding, Rachel sat in a metal chair, hands bound. A bruise was blooming across her cheekbone. Barnes stood nearby, arms crossed. "She doesn't know anything," he muttered. "She's just a waitress with a camera." Kyle shook his head. "She's more than that. She's making noise. That video embarrassed a lot of people. Falcon's not happy. She's just a girl." "She's a witness," Kyle said. "And if she doesn't shut up," that's when Eli stepped in. It happened in less than 3 seconds. He disarmed Barnes. First, one smooth, trained motion that left the officer gasping on the floor. Kyle reached for his gun, but before he could grab it, Eli pinned his arm to the wall with a practiced elbow and yanked the weapon away. "Touch her again," Eli said, voice low. "And you won't walk out of here." Kyle's eyes widened. The vet swept in, secured both officers, zip-tied their hands, and left them face down, unharmed but humiliated. Eli knelt beside Rachel, cutting her restraints. "You okay?" She nodded shakily. "I'm okay. I kept the recorder running. It's in my shoe." He smiled. "Of course it is." They slipped out before reinforcements could arrive. Back at HQ, Ava, Q, and the team listened to the audio, clear as day. Kyle's voice. "No one's going to believe a junkie or some homeless war freak. We bury people like that." Barnes. "The more noise they make, the harder they fall." It was the final piece. Ava looked at Eli, her expression tight with purpose. "We have everything now. Time to go public. Big." That night, from a borrowed studio with a borrowed camera, Rachel sat in front of a black backdrop. Her face was bruised, but her voice was strong. She spoke directly into the lens. "My name is Rachel Miller. I'm not a politician. I'm not a journalist. I'm a waitress. And I saw something wrong, so I told the truth." She laid out the story. Eli's arrest, the harassment, the abduction, the warehouse, the threat. Then the video cut to the audio. Clip of Kyle and Barnes, then another clip, Jameson's secret recordings, then finally, Eli, calm, steady, his eyes straight into the camera. "I've fought wars in other countries. This is the first one I've fought at home." Rachel hit upload at midnight. By morning, the video had gone viral. Millions of views, comments flooding in, major networks calling Ava, civil rights groups releasing statements, protesters starting to gather outside Riverbrook PD. The movement was no longer local, it was national, but the system wasn't finished. At 7:42 a.m., Q's system went dark. Servers offline, files gone. 10 minutes later, federal agents raided their office. Laptops seized, hard drives taken. "We're responding to an anonymous tip," one agent explained. "Funny how that works," Ava said under her breath. They were careful. Too careful. Almost like they didn't want to find anything. Just stop it from spreading. "They're trying to bury this," Eli said later. Again. But they hadn't counted on one thing. Backups Q had copied everything onto an encrypted drive hidden in an old radio casing. He retrieved it from a locker in the back of the church. They still had the evidence. And now, the entire country had seen what was going on. They couldn't stop the truth. Not this time. As the team regrouped in a veteran-owned cafe turned safe, "House," Q handed Eli the encrypted phone. "It's Ava, from DC, not our Ava." The lawyer. "This one's bigger," Eli answered. "This is Turner. Sergeant Turner," the voice said. "I'm calling on behalf of the Senate Civil Rights Committee. We've seen the footage. We'd like you to speak at the upcoming hearings." Eli closed his eyes. This wasn't the kind of war he was trained to fight, but maybe it was the one he was meant to. Back in Riverbrook, the SHIELD men were panicking. Internal messages revealed fear. Brick was missing. Falcon Corporation was denying involvement. Too late. And Kyle? He'd vanished. One by one, the pillars holding up their secret network were cracking, but Eli wasn't celebrating. Not yet, because he knew. Cornered animals are the most dangerous, and the system wasn't done swinging. Not until someone brought it to its knees. The hearing room in Washington, D.C. was warmer than expected, but Eli Turner still felt cold. He stood just outside the chamber, dressed in a dark suit borrowed from a local veterans support group. It was a little tight in the shoulders, but clean, sharp. He wore his boots, the same cracked pair he'd had in Riverbrook. It didn't feel right to walk into this room in anything else. Ava Washington stood beside him. Her presence was calm, composed, steady like a metronome, something to measure against the noise of what was coming. Rachel sat in the front row inside, camera in hand, eyes focused. The quiet girl from a small-town diner had become something else entirely. A force, a witness, a storyteller the country now listened to. A man opened the door and signaled. "You're up," Ava whispered. Eli nodded and stepped in. The chamber was full. Press, lawmakers, vets, people in suits, some with medals, others with tired eyes and arms folded. He felt them all watching him. He walked to the microphone, his steps sure, but not rushed. He didn't look at the name tags in front of the senators. He looked at the people. "My name is Elijah Turner," he began. "I served 3 tours in Afghanistan. Staff Sergeant, United States Army. I was awarded 2 Purple Hearts and a Silver Star. I came back alive. But not whole." He paused. No one said a word. "When I returned, my wife was dying. The VA lost her paperwork. Called it a delay. She passed before they figured it out. I lost the house. Then the job. Then eventually, everything but my dignity. And even that, some people tried to take from me." He exhaled slowly. "I was arrested for sitting in a diner waiting for dinner I paid for. I was mocked, threatened, because I was homeless, because I didn't look like I mattered." Another pause. His voice was calm, but it carried. "This isn't just about me. It's about every vet who sleeps under a bridge while skyscrapers shine, empty at night. It's about systems built to look strong but rot inside. It's about people in uniforms who forgot what the oath meant. And it's about those who still remember." He nodded toward Rachel. She remembered. A waitress. No badge, no power. She called someone. She believed me. He took a breath. "I'm not asking for pity. I'm not even asking for praise. I'm asking for protection. For the next one, and the next, I'm asking for truth and consequences." He stepped back, and the room, every last corner of it, stood to their feet. No one clapped, not at first. Not because they didn't want to, because it didn't feel like a speech. It felt like a reckoning. In the weeks that followed, the tide changed. Falcon Corporation's top executives were indicted for conspiracy, unlawful evictions, and bribery. Their assets were frozen. Their board collapsed. Captain Brick was arrested in another state, trying to board a charter flight with 3 IDs and a suitcase full of cash. He pleaded not guilty. He was found guilty on all counts. Riverbrook's police department was placed under federal oversight. Kyle was never found. Rumors said he'd left the country. Jameson Miller testified under whistleblower protections. His actions helped spark the Veteran Civil Rights Restoration Act, passed 6 months later by an overwhelming majority in Congress. The Shield Men Network, operating quietly in dozens of towns, was dismantled piece by piece. Names came out. Investigations spread. The culture of silence began to crack. Back in Riverbrook, something else was growing. The Turner Veterans Center opened in a refurbished train station. It offered housing, job training, trauma counseling, legal aid, and a community kitchen. Rachel ran it full-time. She turned down job offers from media companies. "I already have a story worth telling," she said. She also premiered her first full-length documentary, The Veteran Who Wouldn't Bow. It sold out theaters across the country. Donations poured in. The film wasn't about heroism. It was about humanity and the cost of looking away. Eli never got used to the attention. He didn't do interviews, didn't go on tour. He stayed in Riverbrook, helped fix doors, served meals, sat with young veterans on the back steps of the shelter and just listened. One evening, Rachel found him in the garden out back, adding a small wooden plaque to the memorial wall. Each one carried a name of a vet who hadn't made it. She looked closer. This one read, Officer David Barnes. She said nothing. Just watched him kneel, press his fingers to the edge of the wood. He made bad choices, Eli said. But I keep thinking, what if someone had helped him sooner? What if someone had believed him when he was breaking? Rachel looked down. You still believe in people, even after everything? Eli stood, brushing the dirt from his hands. I have to. Otherwise, I'd become what they said I was. A year after the first video went online, Rachel organized a town gathering. Not a protest, not a rally, a meal, long tables, folding chairs, kids drawing chalk murals on the sidewalk, elders playing dominoes, veterans serving barbecue with soft eyes and steady hands. Eli sat at the end of the table, quiet as always. A young man in clean but oversized clothes approached. Hey, Mr. Turner? Eli looked up. The kid was maybe 20, too thin. Shoulders slouched like someone who'd learned early to expect rejection. I just got back. Army. Haven't been right since, the kid said. I saw your video. I didn't. No people like me could be okay again. Eli took a sip of water. You're not broken, he said softly. You're just tired, and you're not alone anymore. The kid nodded and smiled for the first time in what looked like months. That night, Rachel posted one last video. Just a single clip. Eli, walking down Main Street, boots crunching leaves, dog tags swinging quietly, her voice over it. We think change comes from the top, from titles, from people with suits and microphones. But sometimes it comes from a man just trying to eat a warm meal, who stood his ground, who made a call, who reminded us all what dignity looks like. The screen faded to black. 3 words appeared. Never forget anyone.